What if the woman you loved was sleeping with your sister's husband? If you believe betrayal deserves to be told in brutal honesty, subscribe to Lies Unveiled. We don't hold back. For months, I kissed her forehead every night, knowing she was sleeping with someone else. She didn't know that I knew, but I did. She didn't know I'd found the burner phone, or that I'd seen the late-night messages, or that I recognized the damn cologne lingering on her clothes that wasn't mine. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I watched. I waited. This isn't a story about heartbreak. This is a story about calculated revenge, the kind of vengeance you only plan when your soul's been hollowed out and replaced with fire. But what made it unforgivable was who she chose. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was sleeping with my sister's husband, my own brother-in-law, a man who smiled in my face every Sunday dinner, a man who held my children and called me family. I stayed silent for months. And then one morning, I made sure she had nothing left to lie about ever again. We met in college, the kind of meet-cute people write about. I was broke, stressed, majoring in business, and pulling double shifts. She was dazzling, a marketing student who lit up every room. I fell fast, and she fell faster. We were inseparable. After graduation, we built everything together. She pushed me to start my own firm. I encouraged her to take risks. We worked late nights, shared frozen dinners, and whispered dreams into the dark. She held my hand the day I signed my first big contract. I held her hair back when morning sickness hit. We had 2 kids, a home, a routine. I thought we were solid, not perfect, but anchored. Her sister and her husband were always around. Family barbecues, birthdays, holidays. He was charming in that harmless way, the kind of guy you wouldn't suspect because he played dumb so well. But over time, I noticed it. The extra long hugs, the late-night work help texts she'd never explain. Once, I walked in from work early and saw her on FaceTime. Her tone shifted when I entered the room. She said it was her sister, but her expression was wrong. I didn't ask questions. I observed. Because the more silent I became, the more truth slipped through the cracks. And it was worse than I thought. Marriage asks you to bend. I bent until I broke. While she was pursuing a second master's degree, I turned down a partnership offer from a major firm so I could be home with the kids. I told myself it was temporary, that one day she'd look back and see the kind of man who gave up everything to make her dreams possible. She didn't look back. She used that freedom to build her image, to brand herself as the perfect wife, the ambitious professional, the modern mother. And I was her silent stagehand, moving behind the curtain, picking up the mess, keeping the machine running. Every night, I made dinner. Every night, I brushed our daughter's hair and read our son to sleep. I folded her laundry while she stayed late at the library. I believed her, until the patterns became too perfect. The nights she was exhausted, the way she'd jump when her phone buzzed, the way she changed the subject when I mentioned her sister. One evening, after tucking in the kids, I opened her laptop. I wasn't looking for proof. I was looking for peace of mind. But it hit me in the face like a freight train. Messages, pictures, voice notes, a secret folder labeled "Just in Case." Inside, detailed plans, not just about him, but about me. She had documents ready, fake logs, a narrative that painted me as emotionally abusive. I wasn't just disposable. I was a threat she was planning to eliminate legally. She had dated journal entries, screenshots taken out of context, and even a draft of a restraining order she never filed, waiting in the wings. It wasn't just cheating. It was premeditated betrayal packaged in plausible deniability. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up writing a letter to my children, explaining everything just in case she followed through on her plan. But I wasn't going to let her finish this story. Not on her terms. Confession is a funny thing. People expect it to be explosive, shouting, tears, accusations. But when I confronted her, it wasn't with fury. It was with silence. I handed her a manila envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside, a copy of every message, photo, email, and screenshot I'd compiled. Evidence, not just of her affair, but of her intent to destroy me. She didn't speak at first. She didn't deny it. Her eyes just glazed over. Then came the lie. It wasn't supposed to go that far. That line. The coward's chorus. As if infidelity and legal sabotage were fender benders. Unfortunate, but forgivable. I looked her in the eye and said, I know everything. Even what you were planning to do to me. And she broke. Not in the way I hoped. There were no apologies. No sobbing. No collapse into guilt. Instead, she turned cold. Strategic. She asked, what do you want from me? What did I want? I wanted her to feel everything she'd made me feel. The humiliation, the confusion, the quiet unraveling. So I told her I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to let her destroy herself. I let her know I had spoken with a lawyer, that I'd frozen our joint accounts, that the kids were spending the weekend with my parents. Her lips trembled when she realized this wasn't a conversation. It was a verdict. I told her I'd stay silent, publicly, for the kids. But in exchange, she'd leave the house by morning, sign a separation agreement, and stay away. And if she refused, I'd go nuclear. I had enough on her to burn her credibility, ruin her career, and break her sister's marriage in one move. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She nodded. And by dawn, she was gone. But the silence didn't end there. I started receiving messages from mutual friends, concerned, confused. She'd already begun spinning the story. Side we grew apart. That I had control issues. That therapy hadn't worked. She was trying to contain the fallout, control the narrative before it could destroy her. She underestimated one thing. I wasn't fighting for revenge anymore. I was fighting for truth. I printed everything, backed it up, locked it away. Because if she ever tried to rise from the ashes, I'd be there, with the fire she started. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. It echoed with the absence of her footsteps, the silence at dinner, the empty side of the bed that still smelled like her shampoo. The kids asked where she was. I gave them a version they could carry without damage. Mommy and Daddy are taking some time apart. They nodded. Kids always sense more than we think. I moved through the days like a ghost. Work became my refuge. I poured myself into numbers, contracts, deadlines, anything that didn't ask how I was sleeping. But the real battle wasn't grief. It was restraint. Her lies were spreading, carefully placed, deceptively worded. She painted me as cold, controlling, the misunderstood husband who pushed her away. She called it emotional neglect. She was protecting herself, not just from consequences, but from guilt. I had the receipts, all of them. I could have annihilated her public persona in a single email thread. But every time I hovered over send, I saw my children's faces. I couldn't destroy their mother, even if she tried to destroy me. But I wasn't passive. I was precise. I reshaped my schedule around the kids. I met with lawyers to finalize custody. I quietly unfollowed mutual friends and blocked the ones who picked sides. I returned my wedding ring to the drawer and placed the burner phone on top of it. two symbols of betrayal, now powerless. And yet, beneath it all, something strange happened. I started to breathe again. No more hiding. No more second-guessing myself. I went to therapy, not to process the betrayal, but to process the erasure. Years of making myself smaller so she could shine. Years of being told I was too intense, too sensitive, too much. I wasn't too much. I was just with the wrong person. The irony? The man she risked everything for, my brother-in-law, ghosted her after the fallout. His marriage imploded, and with it, his reputation. My sister cut him off. Their affair didn't survive the light of day. It was a secret built on delusion, and it crumbled. She thought she'd run off into some twisted version of happiness. Instead, she ran straight into isolation. And me? I started rebuilding, not for revenge, not to prove a point, but because I remembered who I was before she made me forget. Healing doesn't come in one sweeping moment. It creeps in slowly, like sunlight through the cracks of a boarded-up house. At first, I felt nothing but numbness. Days blurred together. I'd walk into rooms and forget why I was there. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I could have slept next to a stranger for so long without seeing it. But the truth is, I did see it. I saw the red flags, but I folded them into origami and called them love. I let charm blind me. I mistook manipulation for passion. And worst of all, I equated sacrifice with strength. There's this myth that men don't feel betrayal as deeply, that we get angry and move on. Bullshit. I grieved, not just for the marriage, but for the man I used to be. The man who believed in forever. The man who thought love was enough. But then came clarity. I stopped asking, why would she do this? And started asking, why did I allow it? I realized I had built a life where I was invisible in my own home, where my loyalty was used against me, where silence was interpreted as weakness. I wasn't weak. I was exhausted. But exhaustion is not the same as defeat. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I refused to pass my trauma down to my kids. I journaled. I wrote letters I never sent. I went on long drives with no destination, just to feel like I was moving forward. And slowly, I did. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. I said yes to things I used to decline. Dinner invites, weekend trips, late-night calls that turned into early morning laughter. I found pieces of myself in unexpected places. But the most powerful moment. One night, my daughter climbed into bed with me after a nightmare. She wrapped her arms around my chest and whispered, "I feel safe with you, Daddy." And I broke. Not from pain, but from relief. Because I had been so focused on what I'd lost, I forgot what I still had and what I was becoming. Not a victim, not a martyr, but a man who walked through fire and didn't come out bitter, just forged. When you lose everything, you find out what truly matters. And sometimes, the silence left behind is louder than any scream. I didn't move on in the way people expect. I didn't jump into a new relationship or try to fill the void with distraction. I rebuilt slowly, painfully, with intention. I learned how to be alone again. I started therapy, not because I thought I was broken, but because I didn't want to carry her poison into the rest of my life. I needed to understand why I hadn't seen it, why I'd allowed myself to become so invisible inside my own marriage. And what I discovered was both liberating and devastating. I had been loving her from a place of fear. Fear of failing as a husband. Fear of not being enough. Fear of what people would say if the perfect family fell apart. But now, I no longer fear the truth. She tried to erase me, legally, emotionally, publicly. But in doing so, she erased herself from the one thing that mattered most: our children's lives. I don't badmouth her to them. I let time speak for itself. I answer their questions with honesty, age-appropriate but truthful. Because one day, they'll understand that silence can be protection, but it can also be power. And while she hides behind curated social media posts and false narratives, I live in reality. The hard, scarred, honest reality. I take my daughter to school every morning. I coach my son's soccer team. I show up. I listen. I stay present. And in that presence, I've found something better than revenge. Peace. It's not perfect. Some days still ache. Some memories still sneak up on me when I least expect them. But I've stopped trying to forget. I remember everything. Not to suffer, but to honor the strength it took to survive. Because in the end, she didn't break me. She revealed me. Betrayal cuts deeper when it comes wrapped in family ties. If you've made it this far, you've walked through fire with me, through silence, sacrifice, and the kind of revenge that doesn't leave bruises, but scars. This wasn't just a cheating story. It was a study in manipulation, in how some people will burn down everything just to walk away looking like the victim. To those of you who've lived through betrayal, I see you. I know the nights that don't end, the questions that don't stop, the trust that doesn't come back the same. But here's the truth they don't tell you. What's shattered can still become sharp enough to cut through the lies. So let this be a reminder. You're not weak for loving. You're not broken for trusting. And you're not alone for hurting. If this story hit close to home, share it. Someone out there needs to know they're not crazy. They're just finally seeing clearly. And if you believe these stories deserve to be told, raw, unfiltered, and unafraid, then hit that like, tap subscribe, and join us. Because it lies unveiled, the truth always gets the last word.